the studio of your mom's basement comes a podcast by two idiots in a revolving door of legends and has-beens from the oldest university in Texas. This is Purple, Gold, and Getting Old.
What's Tyler eating?
Yeah, that's our new bit. I'm on
every time.
Yeah, exactly. No. So today it's the lunch of rights. Ooh, exciting.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is what happens when you work late, and then as soon as you're done working late, then you also have to start working on your master stuff. And then as soon as you're not done with that, because you still have more to do, then you have a podcast to do. So you eat where you can.
I don't miss graduate school. I had a lot of fun. It's kind of like I don't miss being in college, but it was a blast. I remember the day we lined up at A&M. We're like, there's a practice court underneath A&M's main court in Reed Arena, and so they line all the master's graduates up there, and they get in the microphone. They're like, "All right, who's ready for doctorate school?" And you just heard like several hundred people just start laughing. We're like, "No." Well,
every time I'm between semesters, I start thinking about what's next, and then as soon as I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, I can't do it.
Well, before our guest logs in, I want to let our viewers know, if you didn't see my tweet, yes, I know I was shaking and rocking uncontrollably in the last episode, but really, it was because I have this new chair in my office that does this, and I didn't realize I was rocking the whole time. So no, I was not cold or nervous. I just was enjoying my new chair. And yes, I talked too much on the last episode, apparently.
Oh, man.
Thank you, listeners, for your feedback.
You had feedback?
Yeah, it's a really hot chick named Hannah. She said I talked too much on the last episode. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're lucky your wife listens then.
Wait, so we can just say whatever we want and your wife won't know?
Yeah, you could say whatever you want. Now, I know Rebecca listens on occasion, so
True.
You can get back to her. But
hey, Emily, remember that time UMHB beat Texas State in basketball this year?
She acted
doesn't
like
care. I know.
No, she was like, "Of course y'all did. Y'all are good at sports. We're bad." And I'm like,
"You're Division I."
Exactly. Like that. It's y'all have scholarships.
I mean, there are people out there that think Alan High could probably take Ohio State, but we're not one of those people.
Yeah, not going there. Have we talked about the coach situation on the pod?
I don't think we have.
Well, there's some hot news. I knew it was bad when I get a text from my brother who does not know anything or care anything about UMHB, and then I'm at church and someone else brings it up, and everyone's sending me this Twitter account like I haven't already been on it. Like I'm not deep in UMHB and D3 Twitter, about a coach cussing out players, and it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. But I also kind of wonder, if we brought a camera out to the football practice field, would you see something much different?
It was my first thought until former football players started speaking up about how we won championships without this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh.
You know what's interesting? I saw that. That was Kyle King who said that. But then
I've seen several.
But in his replies, there was some, I don't know what coaches you were talking about. So, it seems to be a little mixed. I don't know. Maybe that's a quarterback's got special treatment. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of funny. Like I was talking to somebody, I won't disclose them. I was talking to another alumni recently. It was like, wow, I'm kind of surprised somebody gets away with it that long at UMHB. I said, that's okay. At least we got to the real problem. The couch crew's not there anymore. So, priorities. Because they were mean.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to talk trash on UMHB about that, I'm like, have you seen some of the other coaching and school scandals around here?
Gosh, no kidding.
I think we're doing pretty good.
Are there any other Baylors we can talk about?
I'm not going there. That's what I was thinking about.
If we did this opening segment of what you're eating, we could just talk British, like Great British Baking Show, because apparently old Greg is one of the judges now, and I had no idea.
That's amazing. I have this I love Gen Z as a youth pastor. I kind of have to. I really do. People crap on them, but I think for the most part they're doing a lot of things right. But if I have one complaint about them.
Can I pause you real quick on that thought?
Yeah.
Name 3 that they're doing right. Help me here. I'm a little scarred from working with them as well.
Number one, I'm trying to be nice because I'm a youth pastor. Number two, I think they are more politically savvy than we were. I'm not saying I always agree with their politics. I'm talking about how they're engaged with politics.
Oh, okay.
Whether instead of just being like, oh, who cares?
Yeah, engaged, I can agree with you on, but I feel like to say they're more savvy would be like, I could go play football at the local sports complex every day, and I'm still going to suck at it.
Savvy doesn't mean right or wrong.
Right.
Savvy just means you understand the system.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they do.
I see a lot of, they're really good at pointing out the problems that older generations won't. And then I'll say, cool, how would you fix it? And then I'll just hear something I really wish I hadn't heard.
Yeah, that is every young generation is like, we're going to change the world. And then like, no, you don't. You're like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I've got my mortgage now. But what the other thing, I love their humor. But what annoys me about them, I was going to point out, is they think they invented weird random humor. They're like, yeah, millennials are just like straight humor. I'm like, what are you talking about? No. Have you seen Charlie the Unicorn? You know, yeah. And I want to show them old Greg. I'm like, please do tell me you invented weird random humor, because this is like millennial core for me. Okay,
I don't have regrets, but if I could go back and give younger Tyler and Garrett one piece of advice, I think it would be every time one of you sends the other one a YouTube video, save it into a playlist, because someday you have just an endless collection. I wish I could remember half of them.
You know what would be a terrible idea for a podcast is a food review podcast.
We could do that to tell the story about Hardy Hall having a strike my sophomore year. It was so bad there was a serious walkout until they fired the chef. I remember I made a burger one time. I took a bite and I was like, man, this tastes stale. And I flipped it over and the whole bottom half, like the bun was green on the bottom. And then Carl Eason had a metal screw in his chicken. And I remember Carlton Limley had spaghetti in his pizza. He's like, if we're not recycling the food, how did this get here? You know, I keep seeing the UMHB meme page make fun of the food they get. I really don't like being the old guy, because like, even when I get there, like, you're already so much better than it used to be. Oh, so yeah. It's a thing. But like, dude, there was no. I've had some of that food. That is like amazing compared to Hardy. And there's two of them. Dude, this is trippy. Yeah, two Nathan, two.
All right.
I don't think the world's ready enough for one Nathan. Now we have two.
I was going too quickly through the request, and I think I said not allow microphones. So I had to go in and change those settings. So I was thinking, oh, send me notifications. I was like, no, I don't want notifications. And I think the first one was microphone. And I was like, oh, dang it.
We've just been recording senseless banter until you got on. And
senseless banter. Hey, well,
editing this thing's going to be a nightmare.
I'm going to be very scared of the edit, because we've just been name dropping and talking mad trash
about people. Anyway, finally made it.
Dude,
30 minutes after he said, but hey, yeah, thanks. Glad to finally be on.
There you go. I miss your geography teacher background, but that'll work.
I know. That's what I was going for. I was like, man, I have the world behind me and all the different postcards from all the different coffees we've gotten all over the world. So
sweet.
Oh, Gary, you looked like a social studies teacher.
There you go.
I'd take your class.
Oh, I know you would.
Well, folks, say hello to the man, the myth, the legend, my college roommate, Nathan Berryman.
Nathan Berryman. Hello, everybody.
You know, I gave a kid a quiz, or a whole class a quiz in my confirmation class this week, and one of the questions was, who was Jesus? And one of my kids answered, the man, the myth, the legend. And I'm like, you know what? You get points.
I'm like, are you saying Jesus was a myth?
Yeah, I know. He was very much wrong, but you know, if you're going to be wrong, at least make me laugh. I had a philosophy test one time, and I had no clue the essay answer. And so it was like, what is so-and-so's teaching of so-and-so? and I was like, so and so's teaching of so and so was about faith, faith-informed discernment in a global society.
Shout out Kane Taylor.
Yeah,
dude.
Yes.
I had a professor my last semester of college, Donna Morris, rest in peace. I got along really well there, but I had this video editing test that I just knew I wasn't going to do well on because I didn't quite comprehend some of the editing lesson that went into this program. So, and Nathan might have seen this. I don't remember if he saw it or not. I went home and I had to do the whole thing on Microsoft Movie Maker and then try to sneak into the lab early the next morning before the test to try to just add edits on their software. Then we had to, y'all were both in the movie. It was that tour guide. It was, no. It was either the tour guide one or the one where we crashed the car and like ended up at UMHB and y'all were in the Longhorn shirts. But
I thought those were the same ones. No? Those weren't the same videos? The tour guide?
One of them was for Search Crew, and that was Nathan and Kane were the tour guides, and Nathan was the good tour guide, and Kane was terrible at his job on purpose. So I was in there editing, and then we had to do a written part to this test. I was like, well, here we go. So I wrote, at this point, I showed up to the lab early to try to cover up the fact that I had no clue what I was doing. At that point, I began to panic and hope that Dr. Morris would have sympathy on me. I really wanted to graduate. And I wrote this long essay about just my panic. And let's just say I passed with flying colors and she thought it was hilarious. And according to my dad, he said, no, that school is just so ready for you to leave that they're going to kick you out anyway. So anyhow, enough about me. Let's jump into, let's jump into Nathan. So,
more than welcome, but Megan might have some issue with that.
So Nathan
hasn't stopped me before.
You went to the good old University of Mary-Harden-Baylor. We all know that. We've got some stories. We'll get to them.
We got stories.
But how'd you get there? Like, what brought you to UMHB?
Yeah, man, just looking for schools in high school. I kind of determined pretty early on, unlike a lot of incoming freshmen and seniors, I decided I wanted to major in finance, and I enjoyed my economics class in high school. So I was like, hey, might as well major in that too. They're related. So I basically looked in schools in Texas, really, because I decided I wanted to stay in state at schools that had both finance and economics as majors. And that pretty much narrowed it down to Mary-Harden-Baylor, Baylor, and McMurray. And so I visited all three schools. I guess it'd been the summer before my senior year. And I think McMurray was the first one. And after going to that campus, that was a definite no.
Let's say I know how that got eliminated.
Yeah. But
what made you pick between Baylor and Mary-Harden-Baylor?
Really just came down to combination of cost and then wanting to play baseball and feeling like, okay, I have a better chance at a Division III school than a Division I school where I'm competing against guys that play all the time or whatever, and even guys in Division III play a lot too. So I was like, I'll take my not take my chances, but I feel like I'd had a better chance there. So that's kind of what really came down to, is doing that. And so ended up going with Mary-Harden-Baylor, and obviously have played baseball my freshman year, but then decided that really wasn't quite what I had hoped, and decided it wasn't worth quite the amount of time that it was requiring. Decided I'd rather enjoy college, and obviously it led to meeting you guys. And I know if it would have definitely not been the same college experience, definitely probably wouldn't have had all these stories that we've got if I'd been going to 4-hour day practices.
You'd have hated us if you'd have gone to McMurray.
Yeah, probably.
I love this. I remember the most ridiculous, minute details about people and things from that particular era of time. And yet I don't think I actually knew that those two schools were your backups like this whole time.
Yeah. Well, because really just Baylor was the backup. Like I didn't even really consider McMurray necessarily, because I just didn't.
Yeah. And it's interesting that the first time you and I went and hung out, knowing we were about to be roommates, even though we weren't yet, was actually at a Baylor baseball game. And I just remember we were like, this is a very boring game.
That's right. I forgot about that.
How did
I had a feeling there's going to be so many things I was going to forget.
What'd you say, Tyler?
So how did y'all meet then?
At a club in we were in a speech. We were in Kathy Owens' speech class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That was
our very first semester
freshman year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep, fall 06.
Yeah.
So we knew each other, or like we were friendly in passing. We're Facebook friends. We didn't like know each other until stunt night, until like in the spring. That was really what I think did it. And that was like Justin Aguillon, shout out. And especially because like our class would always get close during stunt night for some reason. And so I remember like Katie and Autumn and Landon and Jeff, you and Justin, me, especially like when we went and saw Spider-Man 3 or whatever, because I just remember having a big discussion about how weird that movie was afterwards at IHOP. You got to UMHB. What position did you play in baseball?
Center field.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
I've always wondered who could throw faster, you or Kane.
But, that's the thing. I don't know who has a better arm. That was the main thing that I learned, that I did not have the arm to be a college outfielder. If I stuck with it, I probably maybe could have done infield, but yeah, I learned pretty quickly that I did not have a good enough arm. So
that's how you could have quit in a blaze of glory. Just instead of trying to infield it, you just punt it like a football. Get in.
All right, I'm done.
That'd be the most amazing baseball player ever.
Were you recruited at all, or were you, just wanted to play and like kind of, not a walk-on because we don't have scholarships, but what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, essentially I was a walk-on. I think, I don't remember at what point, probably late spring of 2006, in high school. I told my baseball coach where I wanted to go, and I believe at that point, I think he may have emailed, or maybe been over the summer. He emailed him, just letting Coach Wells at the time, letting him know that I think I was coming and I was interested or whatever. But I don't really know, if he did send that and what was in that. But yeah, it was essentially just, no one really recruited me necessarily. So essentially just, we had tryouts, the beginning of the school year, and there's actually quite a decent number of us. Remember, there was 60 plus that tried out. I remember at least while I was there, the 4 years I was there, that was the largest number of people that tried out. Because I remember each year after that, it kind of dwindled down to the number. But from those, they kept on, trying to remember, maybe close to 40, but then like suiting out maybe 35 or so, because I think that was the number of jerseys they had or uniforms. And then there were about 4 or 5 of us that were on the team, but didn't actually suit out for varsity games. That included like Austin Berry and Brady James and some of those guys. So anyway, so we all, basically tried out, and we all made the team, out of all people. But, we were just we practiced, and then they kind of had a JV team, quote unquote, but it was essentially all non-seniors that played. And then, we ended up only having like one game my freshman year, and then I played total of 1 inning, one defensive, 1 inning defensively and 1 at bat, and that was it. So not a whole lot.
Gotcha.
I just caught myself rocking again. I'm gonna try. We need like a shock collar. Nathan, I was telling Tyler earlier, my new office chair rocks, and I noticed on the last episode it looks like I was nervous because I was doing this the whole time. So I would tell people that Seth Prohaska was the most athletic tuck bro, but I would argue that you were the fastest. I have seen you run sometimes in a dangerous hurry for various reasons, and
we might get into some of those later.
Yeah.
Maybe
Nathan Berryman's got speed. We'll put it that way.
I may be short, but
Andy was Andy was the getaway driver, but man, you were the speed. But you end up at UMHB. What were some of the things? I sort of like outed the whole stunt night thing, but because we always ask people favorite tradition or thing you were part of, and what's something you wish you could have been more a part of.
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking about that because I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna answer those questions. Man, I do like stunt night because that was fun. I mean, that was a consistent thing I did every year. But probably I'd maybe say my favorite was the year I did Crusader Nights. Like that was fun when I finally got to do that senior year.
The fro.
He helped me doing the video. Yeah. so that was probably my favorite because that was a fun time. I mean, but Stunt Night's definitely right there behind it. And then, man, the one I probably wish I did. I was thinking about that a little bit ago. Probably Easter pageant. I never did take part in Easter pageant. That was one everyone, at least usually everyone I knew at some point took part of it, but I don't know, for one reason or another, I never did. I mean, I guess freshman year, obviously, with baseball in the spring, and we didn't have time for that. And then I really don't know why. I don't really have a good reason. So that was the one I should never participate in.
You were always really busy that time of year, especially though. I feel like.
Yeah. But
you were the lead, and you were the lead in Stunt Night our junior year, and you had crew nights our senior year. So
senior year, yeah. So I had those, and those were great memories. So
yeah, we're talking about the
memories.
No, I was just passion.
Oh, the Easter pageant. It's like Titanic. I think that's going to stay in. All right.
Easter week. The Easter pageant.
Oh, the name wouldn't come to me. Yeah.
Happy Easter, Charlie Brown. All right.
And I was like you. That was the one thing, or a couple things, but that was a thing I didn't do. And it's super rare to come on here and hear people who said, no, I didn't do Easter week. But yeah. I'm with you. I have nothing to add to that. I've nothing to say. Yeah. Fellow brother.
I think UMHP should hire the Tuck group to come back to put on the 4th performance of Easter pageant.
That'd be a disaster. What was your favorite sports memory while you were at UMHB?
Oh man, at UMHB, I'll have to say that conference championship basketball game against Concordia.
Yes.
Because thinking about that, some of the conversation we had about sports stuff, the seasons, watching the podcast, and football was definitely obviously the big thing. But man, that game was so exciting. I remember coming in, we came in late from church or whatever, and I feel like it already started, and so already a bunch of people were there. But I think only a few minutes had passed, and just the atmosphere, that fact that it was, nearly packed out, the arena was, and just like they had their student section just right across from our student section, and just going back and forth, and how loud it was. That was an exciting game, and so that was probably the best sports memory, because it was great.
Adrenaline.
And we won, so
that game probably top 3 for me of like games I was not at that I wish I could. Right up there with 04 Stag or 04 Mount Union. Like that's just the pictures and the videos I've seen of the crowd seem just one of the best, maybe the best basketball crowd we've ever had.
If I could go back and relive any of them, like if I could relive it, but take people with me just to show them here's how it used to be, that is actually where I would take them. Very Division One-ish.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or I'd go to the Stag Bowl in 2016 and say, "Don't drive home tonight, you idiot." But that's a whole different story.
Talking about top games not gone to, that was 2016 Stag Bowl was the one I was definitely wished that I had been able to go to, but kind of worked out. I wasn't able to take off work, and and then of course I might have been road tripping with you, and I might have been in that accident with you. So
yeah, no kidding. Not fun. Hey, you got to go to the one that the NCAA says was our first one, so you still got to count your first.
I know, right? Well, speaking of actual first championship, since we're on that one,
there we go.
2016.
We met at that Stunt Night, and then that took us to sophomore year, and we hung out a little bit. We didn't hang out a whole lot that sophomore year, if I remember right.
Yeah, I was rooming with mentioned Justin Aguion, and that was this year I roomed with him in some on-campus apartments, and talking about story. I remember if you may have mentioned it one of the others, but like when we decided we were going to room together, was you'd asked, "Oh yeah, I assumed I was going to room with Justin next year," and I was like, "Actually, I don't know," and decided we were going to room together. But so sophomore year we didn't really hang out outside a whole lot, really, other than Stunt Night, obviously, and then like I said, that meeting, walking back the apartment, and then asking about rooming situation in the next year, and that's how we ended up rooming together, going to the meeting or whatever, sign up for apartments, and the rest
We
is
didn't hang out
history.
much with stunt night that year either, because Jeff and I were directing, and I was like,
Yeah.
I had to go supervise the juniors that year, so I didn't even get to go to our classes stuff as much that year.
Yeah. Was that the Olympic year
Yeah.
theme?
No,
Okay.
that was the
No.
kingdom, the Hardin Land versus Beltonia or whatever it was, and it was like the two
Oh,
kingdoms got in the big war or something, and I think it was
okay.
like Landon and Tyler Jones all were dressed as hillbillies. It was like a
Okay.
yeah,
That's
it was
kind of brain. Man, I
the
must have
year we
blocked that one
won.
out. I don't know.
No, because Olympics was yours, because you were like the TV interviewer.
I
You
thought
were
Olympics was
Okay.
08
That's why I remember
because
that
I
one.
think I was there for Olympics.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that'd have been your freshman year and our junior year. So okay. That's why I remember that one probably, because I was in it.
Yeah, we kind of touched on a couple of those things on the last episode. Tyler asked me, I think, how long the cathedral was an apartment in one of our hands, basically. And I couldn't remember if you lived in there the year before we did, or if you just hung out in there.
No, I just hung out in there because Jerome lived in that apartment, our sophomore year. And so I hung out with him a few times in that apartment. But that was our sophomore year is when Jerome was there, I think, with the Smedleys,
Yeah.
Blake and Preston, and I remember who their fourth one was. And so we didn't, our junior was the first time we started living there. We lived there with Jerome, and so that
Gotcha.
was when that started. So yeah,
Go Jerome.
St. Jerome's Cathedral.
St.
That's right.
Jerome. I remember the day I was walking around campus, I was like, I gotta go home. Like, Jerome's waiting on me, and some guy walking by was a freshman. He goes, "Is that like St. Jerome?" I was like, he's seen the sign.
I know my whole freshman year, I would always walk by or like occasionally come out. Not much freshman year though, and I always be like, "What's the deal with Saint Jerome?" Like the first time I met him, he was like, "Hi, I'm Jerome," and I'm just thinking, "No, you're Saint Jerome."
Oh, the blessings to have everyone think you're a saint when they meet you. So let's see.
So junior year, y'all start rooming together, and that's when I met y'all as well. So is that really when y'all's friendship blossomed? You would say?
Blossomed.
Oh yeah, definitely blossomed. Yes,
and it took off immediately. Like it wasn't
the best roommate story y'all have from that year.
From that year?
Yeah. Or you know what? I'll say it like this: what's your best roommate story ever?
Probably the same one. Well, I'm not gonna say it because it was brought up on the last episode, and it's not my place to tell that story. But there's a certain night in September that.
Oh yeah.
23rd.
23rd
in the year.
I'm good with birth months. I'm just terrible with birthdays.
Birth months, birthdays, birthday suits. Whatever.
It all just kind of started getting into that. Yeah, that's definitely probably the craziest. So I mean, it started off. I mean, that was what, a month into us living together.
Yeah.
I mean, because literally we start in August, and so September 23rd. That's just a month and a couple weeks after. Man, I don't. Like I said, we're getting into this one already.
I want to pause. I do want to pause you though, real quick. And Tyler's asking, like, friendship blossomed when we moved in. And we went when we found out we were gonna room together. We went and hung out a couple times, and then like kept up over the summer, just some plans for the apartment. And then I think that summer you may have come out to Canyon at one point, and we hung out then. And then because I was working for the musical at the time, and I remember when we got back, we were both co-leading the same welcome week group. So it was like even before move in, we jumped right in, and it just took off.
Yeah,
naturally.
No, that's true. It did, because like I said, my family's all in Amarillo, just north of Canyon, and then that's right. We did hung out. Hung out once that summer, and then we got assigned the same welcome week group, and then oh man, trying to think.
Eternal Flame.
Yeah.
Hot as F. That was.
I know. I didn't even know y'all at that point, but I was like, dude, that is the fun group. I wish I was in that.
Yeah, except I just watched that last podcast, the last one. Just today, I was like, okay, I need to remind myself of some of this stuff or whatever. And you mentioned the chant that we had. Then the other one that we had, I can't remember. Was that roll call? Was that roll call
There
one?
were two, and one of them I took
There's-
out of my book so we don't get canceled. But one of them was maintenance turns us on,
Yeah,
and
that one.
that was the main.
Because thinking through that timeline, like it just we kind of dove right in or whatever, and being welcome week and all that. So anyway, we're friendships blossoming, and birthday's coming up. I always get birthday presents from my grandparents, and so I honestly don't remember what it was, sadly,
And yet you'll
but
never forget it.
I don't know what I got, but I still had the box there, and this was this after dinner? We had gotten back, and we went to BJ's to go eat, BJ's Brew House to go eat, and man, trying to think of that timeline. So we came back, and then
pause. We already had a panicked moment because somebody had bought the beer sampler. It's like, it's your 21st birthday. Here's one of everything. We didn't know that a UMHB employee was sitting across the room, and they picked up the tab for everybody. And we're like, oh no.
Did they know? That's right. They paid for our beverages.
Oops.
We drank some water, and so after drinking all that water, I decided that
get his hand in that water.
I think you noticed the box first, because I was kind of like, hey, I want to, it's 21st birthday, I want to do something. And so I feel like you got it. Like if I'm remembering correctly, you got it like, hey, you have this box here. What if you ran around with this box on your head?
Oh, this is Garrett's idea.
Well, no, let's just say running around, making noise, or whatever was happening, was already going to happen. Garrett's idea was,
so if Garrett was the little red devil on your shoulder too. Sometimes I
was the angel, and
yes.
There's actually, for this story,
honestly, that's the thing.
Another individual was the devil in this story. I will say that this whole ordeal was not my idea. I was with St. Jerome freaking out about the idea, actually. So that's why I said, hey, put this box on your head. No one will see you.
Oh, it was a protective maneuver.
Protection.
Got
it.
Yeah. Because I think I did, say, hey, I want to do, this, and then that's probably where you're like, hey, well, what if you wore this while doing that? Because yes, the other person, I think, was just like, oh yeah, sure, that sounds like a good idea.
And the other person took off running, and we couldn't find them for the entire next 2 days. It was kind of funny.
That's right. And so anyway, so I got this box and decided to take a shirt and wear it like a diaper and go running around campus with this box on my head. Started at what is now
our front porch.
Your front porch, yeah. And then where whatever on-campus apartment building is now, and the intramural fields before they are what they are now. When it was grass, ran and through that field, and then ran back through the street, unknowingly running by a couple people having a serious conversation. I found out after the fact.
It was a definitely a DTR.
Yes. It was a DTR that apparently I interrupted. I don't know. This is coming from those who were observing me. I was, completely clueless of what
hydrated.
Was going.
Water.
I thought I was hydrated. Yes, because you need to be hydrated before you.
And folks, when he says he was running around, and you're wondering what's he doing running around? If you've seen It's a Wonderful Life, when he's just telling everybody Merry Christmas at the end. That's really what.
That's a good visual. Yeah, that's a good visual of what. It's a
better visual than I've got.
Fair enough.
So, anyway, I'd say it's a sufficient explanation of the origins of what has become known as the box. and it's just kind of grown from there.
Do you
It
ever think
has.
there's another like social group from UMHB that was there about the same time, and one of their favorite stories is like, yeah, man, like sophomore year, we're just hanging out in our apartment, and then out of nowhere, this dude just runs by with a box on his head.
I know one person who didn't hang out with us at the time, and they saw that night happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's right.
I will just say, for all the people that wanted to go yell Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter, around campus with a
Mhm.
box on their head, would sign their name on it and date it, and without reading any names off of there, I'll just say 16 people signed it before it was retired. So
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
So started a tradition that night. Little did we
Absolutely.
know.
One
I
time
still have.
it was bath time around my house. And my daughter Bailey got out of the bath, and she gets real hyper around bedtime. And she found an empty Amazon box and like put it on her head and just went off running. And I was like, man, something sat down.
There's the one moment we're like, wait, is this my child?
Yeah.
Text me, Nathan.
Yeah.
There's something you need to tell me.
I'm quite impressed that story took place and that we got through it tactfully the way we did.
I am. I was wondering. I was debating how I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
Artfully
I always
done.
got stories, and as a pastor, I work for Christian ministry. That
Yep.
I'll just leave nameless for now. And so, there's some things that may not necessarily want to get out, but hey, you know what? It happened in the past. Had good
Hey.
times, and we've grown up since then.
You can't have a testimony unless you build one. You got to start somewhere.
That's right. So, yes.
Well, I wished Mr. Potter Merry Christmas that April. So,
We did.
Well, so we go from that, and that was 1 month into our roommate brotherhood. And
brotherhood, yeah.
So anyway, Nathan, I wanted to ask you about your spiritual experiences at Mary Harn Baylor. I'm just kidding.
Tell me how you grew spiritually.
Yeah, that's a hard turn. God does have those conversations too, but
I will say living in that apartment actually sucked that first year, I think. Like, we had a lot of good times, but man, it could just, depending on what mood any given person was in the floor, it was just be a vulgar display of pots and pans being thrown literally across the room. We had to escape every now and then.
Yeah, it was a little bit of roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there were some arguments and
just a few minor disagreements.
And disagreements,
threats and stuff. So you and I had been a part of a friend group kind of the year before, year and a half, but like that year, it was pretty much you and me. It was kind of like the duo. I was like super involved on campus, didn't have time to hang out with a lot of people. You had your stuff going on. It was just like we kind of were, you and I were the group. It was kind of
pretty much.
I don't know about you, but I felt going into our senior year that we peaked. It kind of maxed out. Like, it was not a fun ending to that year. And so I vividly remember the day that, and the reason I'm telling this is because it turns into a question. I remember right before we moved out, you and I were the only people left. Everything's out of that apartment. There was like a weird glow coming in the blind, so you could just see the dust floating. It was like empty. And there's a knock on the door. I'm like, who wants something now? Like, we just want to go home. And I open the door and it's Tyler. And Tyler, just so our listener, Tyler, like, we'd been around him, we were friends, but we hadn't like hung out yet. And he came over and he's just like, it's been a good year. And I'm thinking, whatever he's smoking, I want some. No, it has not. And he just came by to thank us. Well, he leaves. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, there's another knock. I'm like, how many people? Well, Andy had just left. So Andy had been hanging out with us. And Andy was about to move in. And I'm like, who wants something now? It was Kane and Emily. They walked in just to say goodbye. And Brett came over. And my question on all of this is, did you think at all that was going to be a group that formed in the fall? Because I had no idea.
Oh yeah, no, neither did I. I mean, like you said, yeah, each of those people we kind of hung around some, but it wasn't consistently, or like I said, I don't already mentioned, I don't think even altogether really. It was just kind of here and there at certain events, but yeah, definitely not the way that it turned out. I did not expect that at all.
My other question, I promised I wouldn't talk too much on this episode before I hand back to Tyler, just because these are things that only I would have really noticed, is you were there firsthand for all 4 stunt nights of our class. And something I've said on previous episodes is, like freshman year, we had a blast. It's just typical dumb freshman skit that we thought was a masterpiece, around the world in 80 minutes. And then sophomore
That's
year
right,
was
yeah.
the Two Kingdoms, when our class won. And junior year was when you were the lead, but it was kind of hostile going into that. And I don't know if you remember it as well as I do on this, but that was when the SGA race was happening. And do you remember how they divided us up into like different rooms so that we didn't all have to work together?
Vaguely, that's the thing. Like I remember all that, some of that stuff happening, but I know since it kind of more involved you directly, like you have definitely a stronger memory of it, because me being necessarily not a non-confrontational person, like I got along ish with
Mm-hmm.
some people on both sides, and so some of those tensions, like I remember it a little, but like it's not as vivid for me as for you. So when you mentioned that, it's kind of like I kind of remember it now, but it's not doesn't stick out to me as much.
Yeah, because I don't know, like I tell people, yeah, there were tensions, but then we all got along in the end because stunt nights what brought us together. And people used to think I was always butting heads with, we called them the Katies. There's a whole group of girls and half of them were named Katie, but we actually were pretty good friends. And like that, I don't think public perception realizes that. And in fact, I just saw one of them yesterday at HEB. We're like, hey, what's going on? So I didn't know what your memory was on that, like how by senior year we all kind of came together and it was all different.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely remember the tension that involved with SGA, and like I said, it kind of bled over into stunt night, but man, yeah, the specifics of that, man, that's so long ago at this point. Trying to remember all of that. Oh, yeah.
I can't pretend I still remember all this. I had it written down.
Well, yeah, see,
I
that
mean, I remember
helps you too.
that, but
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we get out of, we go through our junior year. And for me, I would say that spring was probably my worst semester of college. But what I've always wondered is like how you put up with all the nonsense that I had to drag home, because you were always so like calm and collected about everything. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not at losing poker, but like everything else, like you, you keep the coolest head. Like, in
Oh,
addition to me having the other personalities in that apartment, even the next year when it was good times, how did you always stay calm? Because we had a wild group that next year.
yeah, we did. I don't know. I say that's just kind of my personality. I mean, I don't know, talking about part of it being non-confrontational. If something, if there's some argument going on, it typically just kind of, I'm the one that typically sits back and listens. Like I rarely interject my opinion, for better or for
Unless you're playing
worse,
Call of
in
Duty.
whatever situation is. And so, what was that, Tyler?
I said unless you're playing Call of Duty.
Unless I play or Halo.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Halo, yeah. We don't need to get into those.
Yeah, there's gonna be
Nice.
something where someday they release like, hey, we found audio archives of all online games. We're going, well, none of us are running for office.
Gosh, no, not at
I'll never
all.
forget the day I woke up from a nap thinking there was an actual fist fight breaking out in the living room, but it was just Andy yelling at somebody.
Oh man.
Yeah, I remember scaring Carly. I think one time I was playing Halo.
I just remember
Sorry,
she
Megan
she
walked in making snarky comments.
she's probably right.
She's
Well,
right, but
you
she'll
mentioned Carla.
start.
She was the one who always had to make sure we watched our language when that game was going on. I never got angry at COD. I already knew I sucked at it, so I usually just got on there to troll people.
Just to make fun of them. But yeah, like I said, other than those few situations, just I don't know. I would say I was necessarily the mediator of the group, but just kind of, I don't know. You mentioned that, and one of the things you mentioned in the letter that got to write for you for the thing this past summer or
Oh yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and just kind of just being there for you, and I mean, not even like necessarily realizing that it helped you out or whatever, but I don't know. It's hard to describe, really put into words exactly, why, but I don't know. It's kind of the way I've been, I guess.
Well, and it's such a good trait for you. I mean, I would say that, in the history of the Friar Tuck crowd, I would say like in college, you like if there wasn't a Nathan Berryman, there wouldn't have been a group because like, oh, Garrett's the loud one. He keeps this group together. I'm like, well, I had help the entire time. Like it definitely took more than one person, and I didn't even see myself
Yeah.
that way at the time. So I would say like since college, I'd say Hannah's the staple, but she's very introverted, so I won't go off onto that. But the silent weapon of the Tuck group.
Yeah. See, I was just the one before Hannah, that kept you calm, and then she could come in and take over.
Or just
I've never thought about it that way, but that is so funny.
Yeah. I kind of touched on our junior year, and it was like we kind of had our heyday at the end of that year, and then we come into the next year with this new group of friends. I don't know about you, like for me, it rejuvenated my interest in even being there. Like I was kind of over it senior year, but for you, so the Tuck group gets started in our apartment. Basically, we got the open sign. People start coming over every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are some of your memories of when that started to take off?
Yeah, I remember, you mentioned in previous podcasts, like just people just always, being over, which I mean, I enjoyed, even though, like you mentioned, I'm more of an introverted person, but I still like being around people and just, having those conversations. Like I said, not necessarily the one always interjecting, but just, sitting there, just kind of taking it all in, for lack of a better term. But yeah, just I remember, when we first met, um, or I guess it was because it was at the concert, right? Oh gosh, what was it? Belton Fair or whatever. And we're going to see
Yeah,
Casey
Casey
Donahue was
Donahue.
playing,
Yeah,
and that was where I met Hannah and Carly and Catherine first, right? And was
and
Rachel
Rachel.
with
Yeah,
them?
and there
Yeah,
was a
and
there was a
so
fifth girl briefly. I don't think she went to the
oh
concert with us, but yeah, she and Andy got along well.
no, but anyway, so I mean that's the thing. Like I remember that, and then after that, it was just kind of yeah, like those during the week, and then on Saturdays after football games, then people, at least someone, being over usually, between interspersed between, obviously you got homework and stuff going on and senior year. So I just, trying to think. 'Cause I remember in my senior year, those when I was like, okay, I want to just try to hang out as much as possible. I didn't have very many hours left. Like fall, I only had to take 12, and spring semester I only take 9 hours. So like I was like, okay, I'm just going to ease into graduation, try to enjoy it. And so, it was, just going football games and going to basketball games. And then, I mean, basically just always hang around all those people that started joining us, like you mentioned Carly, and then John and Faith and Chase and all of them that kind of hung around. And
I forgot those four.
yeah, and
It was
me
a
and
huge group.
Chase.
There's like 25 people in that thing.
And then, I mean, this was what, whenever we had that snow day, I don't know if that was spring, if it was January or if that was December, me and Chase running through a campus in our skimpies.
Yeah, that was
and getting pelted with ice balls.
all three of us did that run. And I remember on our all-time draft episode, I'm like, yeah, Ladero hit me with a snowball that day, and he put that quarterback arm into it.
I don't know who I got hit by, but I got one square in the back, and man, that hurt.
we were pretty marked up by the time we got back to the.
Yeah,
I think of all the surprises I've had in my life, I think a top 10 worst surprise was thinking, oh well, everybody's already gone inside, and then running around Johnson Hall and being like, oh no, they're all here.
like, oh crap. Seeing 20 people out there, oh yeah, building snowmen or whatever, and they see us.
200.
Like, oh yeah. here we go, and everyone gets their eyes big, like, oh, we're gonna pelt these guys.
Funniest thing to me is I heard some people talking about it later, like, dude, we were building a snowman with Randy O'Rear because he was out on the field with us, and we saw these guys streaking by. I was like, oh, you don't say.
But anyway, all that to say, I mean, yeah, like I don't know, I don't remember a lot of specific things necessarily. At least, the first semester, kind of when it all, that group formed, basically, kind of the beginnings of that. But yeah, I just remember usually always someone, usually evenings whenever there's someone being there, and always, people hanging out in our apartment, which, for me was great. It was our senior year. It's like, okay, this is my last year. My plans are probably moving back to, Dallas Fort Worth area to find a job or whatever. And so I knew I just wanted to take advantage of it as much as I could.
What was your favorite party you ever went to?
Man, we had some pretty good Festivus parties. Probably the ABC party we did.
Yes.
And I did not go to.
You weren't there. Oh
no, it made me uncomfortable. I was like, y'all have fun. Tell me about it.
It made a lot of people uncomfortable. But I won a trophy that night, and I still have it. So,
there you go. So see, good things came out of it.
Yeah,
that was
somebody almost lost a leg because their circulation being cut off. I remember that.
Oh yeah, that was. Oh yeah, there were some good costumes. There's some creativity. See, it just brought out the creativity in our group.
Team building.
Team building exercise.
So that we talked on the last episode about how the group started in college, but it lasted so much longer than I think most social groups do. Like, what about any memories afterward? I was just thinking this past week about our Shreveport trip we took before you got married, and like just like what stand out as some of the post collegiate experiences.
Oh man, there were a decent number of those. Almost just as many as when we were in college. Yeah, man, that Shreveport trip, the bachelor party trip, that was a fun one. Man, I remember to say not a lot happened, the casino we went to, but man, after that, we were going out, and then, Brett getting hit up by, I mean, I don't know if these guys are actually in the cartel, but the way he tells it, they're probably in the cartel trying to get recruited or whatever.
I was standing there watching.
You think they probably were? Okay. And they probably were.
Yeah. And then they tried teaching him how to break dance. Brett's like, can we leave? I'm like, I want to.
And then Justin being Justin, I mean, it's hard to describe this. I mean, nicest guy you will ever meet. And so Justin drunk is you take that niceness and then it increases exponentially. To where he's like overly nice and just outgoing, like, hey, let's go do this, let's do that, and trying to like keep up with him. And
I just remember there were two allegedly prostitutes walking across the street from us, and I heard Justin starts to walk around like, are y'all doing all right today? And like wave up, like, let's not talk to them, all right? Let's not.
We don't want their attention.
Can this episode even air?
I said we didn't talk to them.
I think one of my favorite memories of you is the night we pranked the campus, and I don't want to tell the story here because maybe we can. I don't know.
There's a place.
Yeah, I think there's a place for it. People thought you were a cowboy in the woods. And we're like chasing you down. Oh my gosh. At least that's the way you know what I'm talking about?
Actually,
not at the moment.
I think they were confusing somebody else for that, but I remember exactly what you're talking about. Because Nathan was with me during that entire thing.
They chased down Nathan. Okay.
No, I'll tell you off air what it was, but yeah, it didn't quite involve us. I just asked like 3 questions, so I'm gonna shut up.
I don't even know where to go. I seriously like that. Because
Post.
any story I want to tell, I'm like,
Well,
Anyway, so yeah, talking about post college stuff. Yeah, the Shreveport trip. Um, yeah, I mentioned Tyler. You mentioned one of your favorite memories with me. Since this is fresh in my memory, since I watched that podcast about me caressing you when you're in
I don't know if I call it
room.
favorite, but it was a memory.
you liked it.
But to be honest, it did happen again when Garrett lived in College Station, and the three of us were hanging out with him, and apparently I cuddled you in the middle of the night as well.
So it did happen twice.
Was that the trip I got set up with the blind date, and it was
no, that
incredible?
that was not long after that. It was a disaster of a weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did happen. So we just can't, we have to be apart when we're rooming together. Apparently, I can't control what I do in my sleep.
You can cuddle with me. I'm good.
Oh yeah. But man, anyway, yeah, those are the main ones. And then, coming down to Belton, when you moved around a lot, Garrett, after college or whatever, College Station, and then back to Belton for a little while and come back down, hanging out with you guys while, Tyler took, 10 years to graduate. And so he was always there.
It was only like 9.5.
Oh, okay. 9. But yeah, just hanging out in your apartment, with some of those get-togethers that we had. I mean, those were good times, pre kids when we could actually do that.
And even a slight few post kids. You had kids before the rest of us, and so pretty sure you had at least one, and we still had a couple of these gatherings.
I think we did. I'm sure.
Yeah, because the group didn't really like split, so to speak, so around 2014, 15-ish. So
yeah.
But I wonder, on the last episode we were talking about what we admire the most or the funniest thing about each guy, and like a jerk, like I started to answer Tyler's, then we got sidetracked. So Tyler gives me this whole spiel about what he admires about me, and I'm sitting there like, okay, cool story, bro. I admire nothing about you. So the thing I admired about Nathan on that last episode was loyalty, but on this episode I would say the same thing about Tyler, because like Tyler's also been a part of a lot of shenanigans and videos and projects and stuff that I've done and random road trips. But I think your creative nature, honestly, would be tied into that.
There we go.
Because it's something that I have that, but you and I are like constantly like, you seen this movie yet? You heard about this book, that kind of thing. So I a lot of our projects never would have come to fruition, like Nathan dressing as a fawn, if we didn't have somebody working on the production side with us.
Yeah, it was always fun.
We wouldn't have this podcast. This is your podcast. I love it.
Man, honestly, making the Mr. Tumnus video might be my favorite memory I've ever had with Nathan. Like that was just peak college.
That was fantastic.
That's honestly the type of stuff I miss about college, where you have the time to go about accomplishing the dumbest ideas that you like. You know what'd be funny is if we made this like parody of that MSNBC show.
Catch a Predator.
Yeah,
have you ever seen Chronicles of Narnia?
You do it. It was
awesome. I didn't know this till extremely recently, but what was it like, Tyler? You remember? Was it like a month ago? Andy texted us, and he's like, "So I'm actually just now watching that movie for the first time." I was like,
he's like, yes.
He's like, no, I get the joke now.
I can't imagine watching that for the first time after we filmed our video.
Oh yeah, it would ruin it for you.
Like, I haven't even seen that newer that 2010 Robin Hood movie, but I already know I'm gonna start laughing when they get to Friar Tuck.
Me and Andy went to see that together the summer it came out, and we were just like so excited once Friar Tuck came on the screen.
There's a new neighborhood in Temple called Friar's Landing, and like at least one or two of the streets are Friar Tuck Drive and Friar Tuck Court.
That's awesome.
Dude, if I ever get back, I would have to live there.
Be a requirement, have to live.
It's been the Tuck gang or whatever. Like, you had all those other guys in that group. What was the funniest thing or your favorite thing about each of the guys?
Oh man, and just how we just interacted with each other, how we just kind of egged each other on, and just all our personalities just kind of I mean, we were just I don't know, we were an interesting group of guys, and then had the girls that somehow still wanted to hang out with us, and
Most of them do.
yeah.
We kept who we could.
Yeah, that's right. Man, we were just, you kind of mentioned some of the stories, like funny things like Brett said, like the random comments he would make, because we were hanging out, just doing whatever, and he's just sitting there kind of quietly, kind of like me or whatever, really quiet ones, and then he'd just interject with some funny comment, and we'd just be like, "What the heck is going on?" To me doing whatever stupid thing, or deciding it was too hot and needing to remove articles of clothing, whatever might have happened, man, it was fun. I mean, and Kane just, it was Kane just being uh Kane being
It's almost hard to
Kane.
describe these guys. Can you just start laughing the moment you bring their names?
I know.
Kane was like, to me, like the stand-up comedian of the group, because he was the comments and the insults he would have, which is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
Kane could replace Jeff Ross as a roast master general.
Yeah,
definitely. And then Andy just kind of like I was just sitting back, just kind of laughing, and just kind of, oh yeah, taking it all in, like me and Brett. Laughing at you guys.
He had like a special ability, I think, to like take anything to like the next level, it'd surprise you, like, hey guys, so anyway, I emailed the AD at Wisconsin Whitewater, and this is what?
I know where they're staying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, you're so resourceful. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It was. Yes, and yeah, that story, man. You and me, Tyler. That was
Yeah, we were the ones who ran down together with our air horns. Thought we were
air horns that
I drove past that place last week, and I'm still like,
oh man, my first job when I was working in Killeen, I would pass by it every so often, and I would just start cracking up every single time.
Let's just say the manager of that place came looking for me 2 years ago at my previous job. It's like, I'm the manager of this place. I'm looking for Garrett Smith. I'm like,
they finally found me.
Like, hot dog. Here it is. Also a little freaked out, and then they just wanted to partner with my department. That's all it was. But I was just like, oh.
Let's say you're like, oh no, they found me 10 years later.
I didn't fire an air horn in your establishment.
I'm still so proud to say I've been able to tell that story in a sermon.
I remember watching that sermon online.
I need to watch that one.
Yeah, it was about joining the game and not just being an observer. And I was like, when I was in college, we desperately wanted to impact the game so much. We went and tried to crank them at their hotel,
I don't know if I could compare what I did with y'all on that to Jesus recruiting disciples. It just seems wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe taking it a little too far.
Stop you right there.
Tyler, follow me.
I'll
make you a pranker of men.
A pranker of men. I'm sure we're gonna get this episode eventually, but what would Megan say? It was like her first impression of the Tuck group.
That's a good question. Should we bring her on and find out?
Y'all talk for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, bring her on.
Bring her.
Yeah.
I know she's been waiting until we're done. Like, let me know when you're done so I can come back in.
Are you sure you want this?
Yes, of course.
I'm not really sure you do.
I know, I do. And I want to start with the question Garrett started asking. What did you think of the Tuck group when you first met them?
Y'all were nuts. This isn't my phone.
That's not your phone. That's my phone.
Tell me about your time at UTD. Did y'all have some special rock, or how'd that? What was that about?
Rock?
I honestly have no idea. It was I don't remember what it was.
My idea.
That's what I was saying. You're talking about stories here. This
it was
is
on my side of campus.
Yeah, this is Megan's story of why she's an unofficial crew
alumni.
Crew
She's
alumni.
been dubbed.
Never went there.
You're official. You were dubbed.
I have been
official.
That was a very cold night. You're talking about the time that I ended up having to go see the dean to explain to them what happens, right? Yeah, that was great.
I talked to
it was these rocks. Yeah, so after UMHB, I went to UTD for grad school, and also we were dating at the time, and she was finishing up her undergrad at UTD. So we were both going there, and we played UTD in basketball, and we
showed up in our UMHB
t-shirts with our UTD
IDs.
Student IDs, and getting in for free as UMHB shirts on.
Wore that shirt to class that day and got some really great looks from the few athletic teams we had. That was great.
Both of them.
But obviously UMHB won. I think by a significant amount.
The scores.
Someone pull up a picture of the rock. We'll know what the score was.
We have that picture, and so that was the score. Whatever it was, 69 to something. We obviously won, and so I remember what the names of those rocks were, but we knew about them. We're like, hey,
they were on my side of campus.
Yeah, because she saw them. I never.
And they were in the middle of the quad or courtyard or whatever.
And they are meant to be painted on them. Like that was the whole point.
We painted on them all the time. Different
Tennessee's got a rock.
Yeah. And so UTD knew that they were meant to be painted on.
And so we painted on them. The score of the basketball game. And then
go crew.
Go
nothing
crew.
Offensive or rude, just
no expletives, nothing, just the score.
Rubbing it in that we won.
Yeah. And so we thought it was all well and good. And then I don't know how, you may have texted me here or whatever, and I'll let y'all take over this point.
I heard about it the next morning. I was in College Station during all of this. I found out next morning or 2 days later after the aftermath.
I proudly posted a picture of me with it on my Facebook.
Yeah, and you see, folks, I was not always the instigator.
Yes, this is actually the one situation you weren't. You weren't even there.
I didn't even know it happened.
Didn't even know. That's right. So that was us two, and then you, Tyler. Was anyone else with us?
Nate.
But
I really don't remember who else was there at all.
Yeah.
It was just Andy very specifically was not there. He had dinner with us, and he left.
And Andy, Andy, that's right. Andy wasn't there. So was it you and then Nate that ended up getting in trouble then?
Somehow people found out.
Andy was almost in trouble, and he was like, I wasn't there. And they did not believe him. We're like, no, he was not there. And
of course they didn't.
So I got called in the dean, and I remember I pulled up the UTD student handbook, and it showed it we didn't break
even read that.
And I'm like, it says right here, students may spray paint this, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, but you're not a student. And I was like, but I was with students.
That's right.
Students painted it.
And then he gets really frustrated. And he just goes, you just wrote the spirit of the role. You didn't represent UHB well.
I painted our victory in purple and gold. That's representing UMH.
Horrible representation.
I can also speak from experience, and Nathan may be able to as well. Nothing made that dean angrier than putting actual paperwork on the table to prove he was wrong. It never played well.
No, it did not. So that happened. And so, whenever it was, I guess, because the game was it a Saturday maybe, and it was the next Monday or something. So then that's when
I think we were worried that because, as y'all know, your school also has a delightful reputation for actually financially fining you if you break any of their rules. And I was concerned that y'all were going to get fined for something that
y'all had a huge fine that one year.
Yeah. So I think that
we'll do that one next.
Yeah, we'll get to
and so I printed off the pictures and went to the dean's office and requested a meeting and showed her, okay, I don't know, they said that they contacted you. I wanted y'all, by the time I got to school on Tuesday, it was gone. Now remember, I walked by these rocks every day. Like our artwork was gone, even though it was beautiful. And someone had the audacity to paint over it, whatever. But so I took pictures to our dean, and she's like trying not to laugh because she can't believe that students got in trouble for it, I think, because she's like, y'all didn't do anything wrong. She's like, I think we were married. You said we were dating. I'm fairly confident we were married at this point, by the way.
Oops.
She's like, you and your husband are both students here. You could tell me y'all did none of the painting. You just watched, and I'm not gonna care.
I think y'all were dating. Sorry, I did the math in my head. I think y'all were about to get married.
About to get married?
Yeah.
It's been forever.
Because I lived in College Station that first time. So it was the year after. Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
But yeah, so our dean thought it was hilarious, and y'all's dean thought it was scandalous and worthy of incarceration. But it's fine.
I will say, I think it's BS though that of all the things we should have gotten, it was always this way. The stuff that should have gotten us in trouble never did. The stuff that should have made people's jaws drop is still, a lot of it's still relatively unknown. The stuff that got us in trouble was always so stupid. And I think it's ridiculous that the one thing that Andy ever got in trouble for was the one thing he had nothing to do with.
Nothing to do with it all.
I'm like, you take a guy whose entire livelihood.
Listen, we know you're probably innocent on this one, but you got away with a lot of guilty stuff, so just take it.
Like that movie Dick Tracy, when it's like, face it, big boy, I got you for the only federal crime you didn't commit. Yeah, I just, Andy's whole livelihood is like championship moments in sports, like that and family. And I was just like, dude, they ripped that guy off his senior year of basically the biggest event that year for him. And it was ridiculous. Megan, I'm glad y'all mentioned the fine we got, because as I saw that UMHB was canceling classes and then resuming them on Zoom for snow day, I was like, man, pour one out for the homies who have to live in the post-COVID era of just Zoom your classes. I
wouldn't go. I'd fail. I'd drop out. Well, I feel so sorry for those college kids that did college on Zoom.
Oh, same. Well, we had a good snow day our senior year.
Yeah.
And what's funny is the thing that got us the fine actually was Jeff Payne's idea. And I feel like if they knew it was Jeff Payne's idea, there would have been no fine associated whatsoever. But no, Jeff texted me in class, is like, how funny would it be to wear Speedos and jump into the frozen pond?
Yeah.
And I was like, let's do it. I'll text Nathan, we're down. And like, I hadn't even texted Nathan yet. I'm like, we're down. So I texted him, and Jeff's like, well, he's like, I have to get to work. But I was like, well, we're also going to streak around campus in Speedos. So, if you want to watch that. And he's like, are y'all really going to do it? I'm like, here we go. So I remember us changing in that front bathroom at Hardy and walking out. And I remember like Trey Hazelton and Brett McGee are standing there. And I forgot, somebody was with them. I forgot who it was. And they were like, what's going on? I was like, watch this. And we just took off running. And that was where, as we mentioned earlier, the snowballs and ice pelting happened. But no, I just
full
remember
disclosure, I would have been one of the people throwing snowballs at y'all.
Me too, if I wasn't running. I mean, it's just naturally what you do.
You have to.
I don't judge anyone for throwing them out. I judge them for missing.
Okay.
But
because that would have been me.
I was I guess it was that Monday or whatever the next day was, and I get this letter from the dean's office. And it was so, like, I'm sitting there freaking out because I'm thinking I'm in trouble for something legitimate, and I open the letter. Like, folks, it's like Hogwarts if it was something you didn't want to get a letter from. And I'm sitting there in the dean's office lobby reading this, and the reason I don't know what I did was it said, a recent investigation indicates that you broke the following UMHB code of conduct. And underneath it said UMHB code of conduct. I'm like, well, just tell me what I did wrong. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, did I violate the whole thing? What now?
Yes.
So they call me in, and first thing he says to me is, first of all, no more polar bear dives in the pond. We don't need that. And for some reason, the phrase "we don't need that" stuck with Kane Taylor and me for years, because
you don't need that.
I'm biting my lip trying not to laugh, and I'm like, we're a 2,700 student Baptist college that specializes in nursing, Christian studies, and D3 football. Yes, we desperately need this.
Oh my gosh. I remember y'all just used to yell that at people all the time.
We don't need that.
We don't need that.
We don't need that.
See, that was Kane's biggest thing, taking all our phrases we had were because of Kane Taylor, that just saying them over and over again is just
faith, informed discernment, Friar Tuck, Charlie Brown. I just it was I remember, I think you went right after me, because I think I had class, you were in class when I went, and neither of us knew what we were getting called in for. I don't think we both knew we were getting called in to get, like, I just thought I was getting called in, and then you got in, like, we found out afterwards that we had both been called in. And I think the other thing was we had played this board game.
I didn't get called in for it because I didn't do the polar bear dive. I was there. I recorded you.
So you just ran through campus.
I did the campus
half naked.
Yeah, I did.
The snow.
Yes.
And didn't jump in the lake.
And didn't get called in for those things. They combined it.
That was different times.
No. Okay, so
was it the same day?
No, yeah, it was the same thing. So they called us for the same day for different things and merged it into one, like, fine. And what happened was, so I did the polar bear dive.
Yeah.
And then that night we broke curfew. Now, folks, don't let this be a deterrent from attending UMHB. I would assume this has changed since then. Maybe not. I don't know. The curfew was like 1 o'clock, and it had, at once upon a time, it had been 2 o'clock. And so we had girls in our apartment playing apples to apples.
This was all the same weekend?
Yeah, it was all the same weekend.
Y'all are terrible children.
We were horrible people. So we're playing a board game, no alcohol, a few minutes past curfew, and that's what got us into the dean's. So
that's right. Because I remember,
they were trying to come after Megan for spending the night in our apartment, and I gracefully covered because Megan was staying with the girls, except she didn't. I think statute of limitations is over.
Shut up.
And hey, here's how I covered for you. I didn't tell a lie. The dean asked me, "You're telling me that there wasn't a girl spending the night in the bunk above you?" And spending the night in your room. I said, "Well, my roommate, he's in the bunk above me, so I think I would know if there was a girl up there." I would know, and I did know. I just didn't say it. Was
that the weekend I was staying with the girls, though? Because there was a weekend I actually stayed with the girls.
I think you stayed at both.
I think that was because you left with them because they all had to leave. So
yeah. Oh yeah, because the RA busted us.
Yeah.
But all that to say,
because we live next to the RA.
We felt some support after that, because if any of you have ever been to a church that's putting on a fundraiser, there's always a thermometer. I don't know why. There's always a thermometer on a podium, and it shows you how much is left to go. And so we had this thing in our window called the Smith Berryman Disciplinary Fund, and it was a thermometer because they were charging us each like $100, or else we weren't going to be able to graduate. And they told, I don't know if they told you this, but they told me, they said, "You're on strike 2.5. One more complaint about you, and you will not finish college on campus." Y'all, we had like a month and a half left. And
that's insane.
No one thought we told that.
I was told that. And Stephen Schoenwolf had his mom convert his old room into a new dorm for us in case we had to finish out there.
Oh, that's adorable.
Thank you, Stephen and Stephen's mother, for looking out for us. Yeah, he was pretty stern, and he said, "One more complaint and you're off campus." I'm like, "Ooh." So all that to say, we raised the money quickly because people who didn't like the rules were like, "Oh, heck no." And they thought the polar bear dive and streaking was hilarious. So we raised the money in a week. The only problem was I wanted to keep track of who donated what in case we could refund them. And it didn't happen. I just remember Catherine showed up on the porch at Burt with a bag full of change. And she goes, I want y'all to have this. I've had it saved up for times like these. And I looked at her, I was like, what times like these? How many of those have you had?
That's funny. She just knew y'all were going to get in trouble at some point and you were going to need it. So
those were smart girls. They knew.
Why they put up with a lot of you, I don't know. Yeah. But I also put up with you. So what does that say about me? Yeah, we're just going to leave that one.
Yeah, good selection in men. You chose a good one.
I did. The rest of y'all are just collateral damage. She says lovingly.
I think you like the entertainment.
Yes, that's a lot of it. Because I didn't get to do college the way y'all did. So y'all are, I live vicariously through you. And make notes of things to tell my children they should not ever tell me they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm taking in that collateral comment. That's one of my favorite things that's ever been said on this podcast.
Well, yes. Nathan, I've got the most important question of the night for you.
All right.
Did UMHB provide you faith-informed discernment in a global society?
Oh, it did.
How do you use that faith-informed discernment within the global society that you operate in?
Because he's proving that Noah's Ark was real and he knows how much it cost to build it.
There you go.
That's right.
Y'all are going to talk about real questions now. I'm going to go back.
I'm going to go. Okay.
Because I'm not going to be able to sit here with a straight face and no one.
We're going to build an ark and we're going to make the Israelites pay for it.
Bye, darlings. I love y'all.
We love you too. Now that the girl's gone. No, but for real, like, tell us what you.
Anyway,
tell us what you do.
Yeah, currently, I work in the accounting office. Yeah, for like the Institute for Creation Research. We're a Young Earth Creationist ministry and focused on first 11 chapters of Genesis and the importance of them and how, it's at the beginning of Scripture and it's foundational for, all the other doctrines we have, the gospel, why the gospel is important and why we need Jesus is that we're created in God's image and what the Bible says is true. And so we have a team of scientists on staff, which each of their areas of expertise and with their research, and the research is out there just showing that, when the Bible says that God created the earth in 6 days, he means it in 6 days. And so that's, we're there to support the church and, and helping form congregations for those that, may struggle, in hearing different sides, because obviously it's a controversial issue, obviously outside the church and even within the church, obviously, people, different views. And, but anyways, that's why we're there. And I work in the accounting department. So I work with our donations, my job, comptroller, I do all our reporting, things like that. So working spreadsheets, numbers. So, I'm not a scientist. I do not have my PhD in chemistry or physics or anything like that. So
does anyone ever ask you how much it would cost to build an ark? Like, because they see you do the accounting. Do they ever ask you that question?
Actually, no. I've actually never gotten that. Honestly,
he's gonna spend the next 3 work days wondering.
I don't know why, but I just find the idea of the cost of the ark so stinking funny.
Lumber's not cheap, boys.
Yeah, especially last year, man. Price would have tripled probably last year. The cost of lumber.
I saw this meme this week. It was like artwork of Noah's Ark. It was like a children's illustration. But if you look really carefully, both the lions are males walking up the ramp. And so the meme is like people going like, who wants it? Who did Noah have to chew out for that one? That's an interesting question. Is who gives you more trouble at your job? Like, who challenges y'all on the details? Anti-creationists or people in the church who have different views of creation?
It's more so people within the church.
Really?
People outside the church really just don't pay attention to us at all. They kind of look at us kind of like a fringe, view or whatever. So they don't really pay any attention to us at all. So that's why we really don't at this point. Like, I know in the history, the organization has done some debates with different evolutionists or different professors at different colleges. But at this point, no one really does that anymore. Very few do. And so none of them really want to even acknowledge that, our view has any substance to it at all. They'd rather just ignore us. So, yeah. So really a lot of the pushback comes from within the church and the differing views, because obviously the biggest thing is the view, whether millions of years or, like I said, 6 literal days. And so the views with like, the definition of day in Hebrew and things like that. And so the arguments with that, and that, because technically day, that we get that's translated day in Hebrew doesn't necessarily mean a literal 24-hour day.
Right.
But then, argument against that is that, that is true. But then you have in Exodus, when after Moses giving the 10 Commandments, and verses basically in 6 days, the plural version always means 24-hour days. So when he says in 6 days the Lord created heaven and earth, so we're talking about you should work for 6 days and rest on the 7th, just as the Lord, I'm completely butchering the scriptures here. But the point is that basically in its plural version, days does mean 24-hour days. So God's giving us an example of how the work week should be, and it doesn't mean literal days, then, there's some contradictions if you don't take it as literal. But, and then, like I say, it comes down to the authority of scripture. Can we believe what it says? Because they say when you read it, we interpret day as meaning a day, evening and morning, the first day. And so when you call into question things like that, then that's when, can call into question anything else in scripture as well. Then, even into, the foundational points of the gospel, and, was Jesus really a person? Whatever issue you might, you can bring up, it just calls into question anything else scripture says, if, poking holes in that area. And so, obviously, because some people, gives our time for like, oh, why is your focus just on, Genesis and that? And it's like, because it's foundationally, this reason,
there's no ark in Ezekiel. It's not as fun of an attraction.
It's at the beginning for a reason, it's and so that's just been the focus of the ministry. And our founder started, it's been around for 50 years. So it means the organization's been around for a while. So
people like to argue.
I love what we do. So
that's good work you're doing. I always like, I've always kind of been more on the side of like, it's, longer than a day or whatever. But like, I always laugh because like when people get too into that argument, whether was it literal days or not, I'm like, we're all here. Like, I'm kind of the lazy approach. I'm like, well, we ended up here one way or another. It's like, like if we're arguing on Genesis 1, we're never going to get through the whole book.
Yeah. I get that. That's the way Megan kind of feels too. So she's like, yeah, I think it is 6 literal days, but you know what? However it happened, it happened. So yeah, and there's you could get into all sorts of different views, but
was the ark a yacht? Yeah,
I think it would qualify.
We lost Tyler on his own podcast.
Oh well.
Well,
I guess I'm gonna have to sign off with you.
No kidding. Yeah, the G Money and Barry's show rides again.
Barry's show rides again. Only took 13 years.
Well, well, first of all, thank you for doing this, because I say that like somebody that doesn't talk to you almost daily, but it's just I like getting to do stuff like this. And I liked it too. I've been itching to get on this show at some point. I knew we were gonna do it when we did all the Friar Tuck guys, but yeah, your wife's all right too.
Other topic, yeah, she's all right.
Yeah, all right.
Kept her around for a while now.
Yeah, she and Hannah are gonna be like, well, really? They've kept us around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with nothing further ado, I'll just do Tyler. I'm just gonna say it's 9:54, and HSU
still sucks.